Welcome to the channel's book club. May 29 was special for Nigeria. A new president and a new government was sworn in, and expectations for positive change rose high like a balloon set loose. Can the new government create new standards for public administration? Can the country's story finally be told differently from the negative narratives of the past? Those are the type of questions many people are eagerly awaiting answers for. It's simply a time when Nigeria is on the mind of every Nigerian and friends of Nigeria. And so we thought we should dedicate today's episodes to the Nigerian story. We gave two brilliant gentlemen a tough assignment. We asked them, which are your top 5 books ever written on Nigeria? Cheta Nwanze and Olayiwola Adeniji, two accomplished journalists and social commentators who read extensively, found this question very difficult to answer, considering the many choices they had to choose from. But they eventually came up with their lists of 5 books each. Now, when these two men recommend any book, I can assure you it's worth reading. So get ready to make a list of books on Nigeria you should read before the end of 2015. Please join us after this break. Cheta, Lai, thank you for joining us on the channel's book club.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, now I know I gave you a really tough work to do. Picking your top 5 books on Nigeria, that's tough. Let me make a confession, that's not something I can do. Because I've read so many books on Nigeria and a lot of them compete for my top 5 slots. However, I've brought some of my favorite books. I wouldn't call them top 5, but maybe they slot into top 10. And I'm eager to know if any of them fits into any of your own lists. So let's start with top 5. You go first.
Number 1 for me is A Witness to Justice by Father Matthew Kuka.
Oh, I have that. It's on my list.
Great.
Okay.
And as you know, it's a chronicle of what we call then the Oputa panel, what was supposed to be the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and report of which we have not seen up till today. But I found it very interesting because at least we got insight into some of the things that happened with that commission, especially for me, the refusal of the 3 generals to appear and the politics between lawyers, of course, the media, the people generally. And I think to some extent that is going to haunt them for a long time to come. Because as Matthew Kuka did say, it was a moment for them. They had a moment with history, and honestly, they bungled it. And of course, the question also at the end of the book is, did Father Matthew, the author, did he witness justice? Can we really equate what happened, the Oputa panel, with what happened in South Africa? Again, some people will argue the discussion continues. The commission was supposed to be the beginning of a process, but I don't think anything happened thereafter, and that's why we are where we are today. It's a very, provocative book, a book that I think many Nigerians need to know, to read, and then we'll know where we are today.
Absolutely. I think it's a great book. I think it's a very important book, documenting the Oputa panel. It's like a 500-page book or something. It's huge, but extremely important in my opinion. Matthew Kuka did a great job.
He did.
And I'm surprised the book has not received the kind of publicity that I thought it would have received, because he did a fantastic job documenting the whole Oputa panel. And Oputa panel was about so many issues.
So many issues, exactly.
The Ken Saro-Wiwa execution, the occurrences during the military era, and a whole lot, many issues like that documented in that fantastic book. Good. Cheta, let's go to your first one on your list.
One very important book, Looking Forward. It was written in the very early 80s, and the author, for me, one of the greatest thinkers to come out of Nigeria, For the Liberation of Nigeria by Bala Usman.
Mm.
Now, the book basically is not a book in the traditional sense of the word. It's a collection of his essays. Bala Usman, for me till now, is still the foremost thinker that emerged from northern Nigeria, or what is now northern Nigeria. And he didn't suffer fools gladly. He was always very blunt and direct in telling the elite, especially the elite of the north, what they were doing wrong about the region. And he kept saying something that a lot of us have seen play out, which is that northern Nigeria cannot continue relying on the center in order to progress. Northern Nigeria has to be put to work, and that when northern Nigeria is put to work, therein will be progress for not just northern Nigeria, but the whole of Nigeria. He talked in some of his essays, he talked about things that are still issues today. We're talking about essays that were done in the 70s. He predicted very correctly that Mesatina, which was a problem at the time, even if he's defeated, if the conditions remain, a successor will come. We have Boko Haram today. He talked about the crisis in what we now call the Middle Belt. At the time, they didn't used to call it the Middle Belt. It was still the northern region. That time it was Benue, Plateau. There was no Kogi state at the time. It was Benue, Plateau, Gongola states, Niger states, Kwara states. He talked about those problems which are still happening today. So for me, Bala Usman, his essays, his books, he talked about how at the time they were already bungling the whole educationally disadvantaged states thing, especially in what we now call the Northwest Geopolitical Zone. He mentioned names and he said, if we continue like this, in 30 years, this is where we will be.
Is that book on your list?
It's not on my list, but interestingly, I've read it. But again, the problem with books like that, I read it when I was an undergraduate. And of course, all those issues about the Kaduna, was it the Kaduna Collective? That was what they used to call them, Bala Usman, Bala Rebe Musa, Bala Mohammed in Kano, and all of those guys. So I've read it, and I quite agree with Cheta, very important book. But again, like most books written within the academic setup, it never finds its way to the mass market. And I'm sure somewhere in my library I still have a copy of that book. It just never occurred to me that, honestly, it will have ranked among, my best books too. Of course, the other one will be the Kaduna Mafia one that he wrote with Bala Takaya.
Okay. Sounds like a great book, one I should read, so I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the copy.
And also look for the manipulation of religion in northern Nigeria.
Now, Book 2.
My watch.
I've got my watch here.
I haven't read it.
The controversial my watch.
Again, let me tell you, it got on my list, largely because of its contemporaneity, one, and also the controversies around it. Honestly, normally, I will not rush to read an Obasanjo book because it's very predictable. You know the character of the man. But there were issues, of course, politics was coming. He timed it well. He timed the launching well. There were issues that needed to be on the front burner, and I think he did raise some of those fundamental issues about, politicians were very corrupt, that we need to check, now that elections are on the way. And of course, some of the things he did. And I knew that it was going to provoke a lot of conversation around the relationship between, our leaders, between us and our leaders. Do we really have leaders in the real sense of the word? And he did try to talk about some of those issues, and as usual, he tried to let us know why he did some of the things he did, trying to justify some of the things he did, that I don't agree with all of them. And I was happy that there was a counter-narrative by Yinka Odumaki. Unfortunately, the manner in which he published that book never made it as popular as it ought to be. For me, that's why I don't discountenance any book, because it keeps the conversation going. A society that does not argue with itself is a dead society. And I also expected, the critical establishment to also take Obasanjo to task on some of the claims he made. Because the truth is that he will have made... Cheta, you want to come in?
Critical thinking doesn't exist.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
So, you see, the truth is, I haven't read my watch yet. I will read it.
Please read it.
But no, as a matter of fact, it should be a dual thing here, Nzeogu and my command. Because Obasanjo, you see, Nzeogu was a pivotal character in Nigerian history. His actions on A Fateful Day in 1966 put us into a spiral that we are yet to come out of.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, somebody who was quite close to him. And if Obasanjo hadn't been sent to India to train, he may have participated in that first coup. So he was Nzeogu's roommate. So more than any other person, he had a very close insight into the way the man.
Sorry, Cheta, let me just ask you a question. In that same book, I mean, I know Obasanjo was trying to rationalize why, because he came before the stroke. So, and Nzeogu never told him. Could it be a function of saying, look, I don't trust this my friend to that point?
No, Obasanjo came in a week before the stroke.
Yeah.
So by that time it was already too late. Obasanjo was deployed to the Congo and then came back to Nigeria, and then by 63, at the end of 63, he had been sent to India for training. So they started planning that coup towards the end of 63.
Yeah.
And by the time Obasanjo came back, it was too late. So they couldn't tell whether, if we tell this guy now, he will say, oh no, keep the government in place. So it was just sensible to leave him out of it.
Right.
However, my command also gives us, from the federal side of it, from Obasanjo's side of it, definitely Obasanjo really outplayed his own role in the war, to be expected from somebody like him. But at the very least, he wrote, which brings us back to what Lai said, which is the conversation. Obasanjo understands the necessity to seize the narrative, to start the discussion. Yeah. Very important. If you notice, all the people like Alabi, Tama, and the rest of them, they wrote their own books in reaction
to my command. Yeah.
And it's very important. So what that tells me is, if Obasanjo hadn't written and outplayed his role, these guys would not have said anything.
Our two guests have been sharing with us their list of top 5 books on Nigeria. Before we continue that session, how about joining the fun by sending us your own preferred list of top 5 books on Nigeria? You can do that through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. You can also tweet me directly via my Twitter handle @OlakunleCars. Now let's go on with Cheta and Olayiwola's list of top 5 books on Nigeria after a short interlude.